You water your garden regularly, maybe even religiously, and yet plants still struggle. Leaves yellow for no apparent reason. Tomatoes crack right before harvest. Seedlings keel over despite your best efforts. The frustrating truth is that how you water matters just as much as whether you water at all. I have killed more plants from watering mistakes than from any pest or disease, and most of those deaths were completely preventable once I understood what I was doing wrong. Today, we are fixing that for good. I am walking you through the most common watering mistakes, why they happen, and exactly how to correct them before you lose another plant. Stick around until the end, because I have got a simple technique that cut my water usage nearly in half while actually improving plant health. Let us get into it. Water is the single most important input in your garden. Get it right, and everything else becomes easier. Get it wrong, and no amount of perfect soil, ideal sunlight, or premium fertilizer can compensate. Understanding how to water properly transforms struggling gardens into thriving ones. We are going to cover how water actually moves through soil, timing your irrigation for maximum benefit, reading what your plants are telling you, and matching your methods to different crops and growth stages. First, understanding what happens underground when you turn on that hose. Most gardeners think of watering as simply adding moisture to soil. Pour water on top, it soaks down, roots drink it up. The reality is considerably more complex, and understanding this complexity changes how you approach every watering session. Water moves through soil in a column, not a spreading pool. When you water one spot, moisture travels straight down through that area, rather than spreading sideways to adjacent dry zones. A plant with roots extending 8 inches in every direction needs water applied across that entire root zone, not just at the base of the stem. Watering only at the stem trains roots to stay clustered in one small area rather than spreading out to anchor the plant and access nutrients throughout the bed. Soil texture determines how quickly water penetrates and how long it stays available. Sandy soil drains fast, sometimes too fast for roots to grab what they need. Clay soil holds water tenaciously, but can become waterlogged and suffocate roots. Loamy soil balanced between sand and clay offers the best of both worlds, holding moisture while still allowing excess to drain. The top inch of soil dries out first, baked by sun and wicked away by wind. Deeper layers stay moist longer because they are insulated from surface evaporation. Shallow-rooted crops like lettuce and spinach need frequent light watering because their roots occupy that fast-drying upper zone. Deep-rooted plants like tomatoes and squash can go longer between waterings once established because their roots reach down into moisture reserves that persist for days. Organic matter acts like a sponge distributed throughout the soil profile. Compost, decomposed leaves, aged manure, all of it increases water-holding capacity while simultaneously improving drainage. Sounds contradictory, but it works. Organic matter holds onto available moisture while creating pore spaces that let excess water escape. Building organic matter over time reduces how often you need to water and how precisely you need to time it. The best time to water is when your plants need water. A wilting plant at 2 in the afternoon needs water at 2 in the afternoon, regardless of what any guide says about optimal timing. But assuming your plants are not in crisis, timing does matter for efficiency and plant health. Early morning ranks as the ideal window. Watering as the sun comes up allows moisture to soak deep into the soil before heat and wind accelerate evaporation. Plants enter the day fully hydrated and better equipped to handle temperature swings and afternoon stress. Foliage that gets wet dries quickly in the morning sun, reducing disease risk. Roots have all day to uptake the water you provided. Late afternoon works as a solid second choice. The intense midday heat has passed, evaporation slows, and water has time to penetrate before nightfall. Avoid the window between about 10 in the morning and 3 in the afternoon when the sun is strongest. Water applied during peak heat evaporates so quickly that much of it never reaches the root zone at all. You end up using more water for less benefit. Evening watering gets the job done, but carries some risk. Moisture that lands on foliage after dark stays there for hours, creating perfect conditions for fungal diseases to establish. If you must water in the evening, keep that water at soil level rather than spraying over the top of plants. Drip irrigation and soaker hoses work perfectly fine after dark because they never wet the leaves. The worst approach is watering on a rigid schedule, regardless of conditions. Monday. Wednesday, Friday might work one week and drown your plants the next if rain moves through. Check actual soil moisture before adding more water. Your finger pushed 2 inches into the soil tells you more than any calendar. Plants communicate their water status constantly through their leaves, their posture, and their color. Learning to read these signals lets you respond to actual needs rather than guessing. Wilting is the most obvious distress signal, but context matters enormously. A plant that wilts in the afternoon heat but perks back up by evening is simply managing a hot day. The leaves lose water through transpiration faster than roots can replace it during peak temperatures. So the plant goes temporarily limp to reduce sun exposure on leaf surfaces. This is normal and does not necessarily indicate a watering problem. Check the soil before assuming you need to irrigate. Often the soil is perfectly moist and the plant just needs cooler temperatures to recover. A plant that remains wilted into the cool morning hours has a genuine problem. Either the soil has dried out completely or something has damaged the root system and blocked water uptake. Dig down and check. Bone-dry soil means you underwatered. Soggy soil combined with wilting usually indicates root rot from overwatering. The roots have drowned and can no longer function, even though water surrounds them. Leaf color shifts signal water stress before wilting becomes obvious. Leaves that dull from vibrant green to a grayish or bluish cast are often thirsty. Yellowing leaves can indicate either overwatering or underwatering, depending on other factors. Overwatered plants often yellow from the bottom up as lower leaves suffer first from oxygen-starved roots. Underwatered plants may yellow more uniformly or show crispy brown edges where leaf margins dried out. Curling leaves tell their own story. Leaves that roll inward lengthwise are trying to reduce surface area exposed to sun and wind. A classic. Drought response. Leaves that cup downward sometimes indicate overwatering or root problems. Blistered bumps on leaf undersides, called edema, appear when roots push more water into the plant than leaves can transpire. Almost always from overwatering combined with high humidity. A tomato seedling, a fruiting pepper plant, and a mature head of lettuce all need water, but they need it in completely different ways. Treating every plant identically guarantees that some will suffer. Seedlings have tiny root systems concentrated in the top inch or two of soil. That surface layer dries out fastest, sometimes within hours on a hot day. Seedlings need frequent light watering, sometimes daily or even twice daily, to keep that shallow zone consistently moist. Deep soaking wastes water on soil the seedling roots cannot even reach yet. A gentle spray that moistens the top couple inches serves seedlings far better than flooding the entire bed. Established plants with developed root systems work on the opposite principle. Infrequent deep watering encourages roots to grow downward seeking moisture, building a robust root system that anchors the plant and accesses nutrients throughout the soil profile. Frequent shallow watering trains roots to stay near the surface where they remain vulnerable to heat and drought. Water deeply, then let the top inch or two dry before watering again. The roots stretch downward following the moisture gradient. Fruiting plants demand more water during production. A tomato plant setting dozens of fruits pulls enormous amounts of water to fill those tomatoes. Peppers, squash, melons, cucumbers, All of them need increased irrigation once they shift from vegetative growth into heavy production. A watering schedule that worked fine during early growth may leave fruiting plants chronically thirsty. Watch for blossom end rot on tomatoes and peppers, often a sign of inconsistent moisture during fruit development. If you are finding this helpful, you will love my free weekly gardening guides. They cover topics like getting your watering schedule dialed in for your specific climate and soil type. Sign up free in the description and get one detailed guide every week. Back to fixing these watering problems. Overwatering and underwatering produce surprisingly similar symptoms above ground. Both cause wilting. Both can yellow leaves. Both stress plants enough to drop flowers and abort fruit. The difference reveals itself when you check the soil. Underwatering seems straightforward but catches gardeners more often than you might expect. The mistake usually happens because surface watering creates an illusion of thorough irrigation. You stand there with the hose, water pooling on top of the bed, and it feels like you gave those plants plenty. Then you dig down 2 inches and find bone-dry soil below that wet surface crust. The water never penetrated. Dry soil, especially soil high in peat moss or containing lots of decomposed organic matter, can become hydrophobic when it dries out completely. Water beads up and runs off rather than soaking in. The solution takes patience. Water lightly to dampen the surface. Wait 5 or 10 minutes for that moisture to break the hydrophobic barrier. Then come back and water thoroughly. This water-wait-water method re-wets stubborn soil far more effectively than simply pouring more water on top and watching it run off. After watering, check your work. Push a finger or a trowel into the soil and see how deep the moisture actually reached. Shallow-rooted crops need wet soil 3 to 4 inches down. Deep-rooted plants like tomatoes benefit from moisture 8 to 12 inches deep. If your watering only penetrated 2 inches, you did not water enough regardless of how long you stood there with the hose. Overwatering kills more container plants than any other single cause. In-ground gardens drain excess water into the surrounding earth. Containers trap it. A pot without drainage holes or with blocked drainage becomes a swamp that suffocates roots within days. Signs include wilting despite wet soil, yellowing leaves, a sour smell near the soil surface, and eventually complete collapse. The fix requires restraint. Stop watering entirely until the soil dries significantly. Check drainage holes and clear any blockages. Consider whether the potting mix itself holds too much water and needs amendment with perlite or coarse material to improve drainage. For plants already showing root rot, unpotting and trimming away damaged roots sometimes saves them, though prevention works far better than rescue. Mulch transforms watering from a constant chore into an occasional task. A 2 to 3 inch layer of organic material over bare soil reduces evaporation dramatically, keeps soil temperature stable, and locks moisture where roots can access it. Almost any organic material works. Straw, wood chips, shredded leaves, grass clippings, aged compost, even shredded newspaper in a pinch. Each has slight advantages and disadvantages, but all of them outperform bare soil by a wide margin. A bed mulched with 3 inches of wood chips might need watering once a week, where an identical unmulched bed needs water every other day. Apply mulch after the soil has warmed in spring. Mulching cold soil keeps it cold longer, delaying plant growth. Pull mulch back slightly from direct contact with plant stems to prevent moisture sitting against tender tissue and inviting rot. Replenish as needed throughout the season, since organic mulches break down over time, which is actually a bonus because that decomposition feeds the soil. Mulch also suppresses weeds, which compete with your plants for water. Every weed you do not have to pull is water that stays available for crops you actually want to grow. Wilting in afternoon heat that recovers by evening is normal and does not require immediate watering. Check soil moisture before adding water. Wilting that persists into morning indicates genuine water stress, either from drought or root damage. Dig and investigate before assuming you need to irrigate more. Tomatoes cracking near harvest almost always traces to inconsistent moisture. A dry period followed by heavy watering or rain swells the fruit faster than the skin can stretch. Consistent, even moisture throughout the fruiting period prevents cracking. Mulch helps enormously by stabilizing soil moisture between waterings. Blossom end rot on tomatoes and peppers looks like disease, but is actually a calcium uptake problem caused by irregular watering. The calcium exists in the soil, but cannot reach the fruit without consistent moisture to transport it. Fix your watering consistency and blossom end rot disappears. Yellowing lower leaves combined with soggy soil points to overwatering and possible root rot. Stop watering, improve drainage, and let things dry out. Yellowing leaves with dry soil indicates underwatering or sometimes nitrogen deficiency. Water deeply and watch for recovery. If yellowing continues despite adequate moisture, consider feeding. Fungal diseases on foliage often trace to overhead watering, especially in the evening. Switching to drip irrigation or soaker hoses that keep water at soil level breaks the disease cycle. If overhead watering is your only option, do it early in the morning so foliage dries quickly. Seedlings falling over at the soil line, a problem called damping off, results from fungal pathogens that thrive in constantly wet conditions. Let the soil surface dry slightly between waterings and improve air circulation around seedlings. Bottom watering containers instead of top watering eliminates most moisture-related problems in one simple change. Set your pots in a tray or basin of water for 20 to 30 minutes and let the soil wick moisture up from below. The surface stays drier, discouraging fungus gnats and damping off, while the root zone gets thoroughly hydrated. Lift the pot after soaking. It should feel noticeably heavy. That weight tells you water reached throughout the container. As the pot dries over the following days, it gets lighter. Water again when the weight drops noticeably. This method uses less water, reduces disease pressure, encourages roots to grow downward, and takes the guesswork out of knowing when containers need irrigation. Once you try it, you will wonder why you ever watered from the top at all. If you have made it this far, you clearly want to get watering right and stop losing plants to preventable mistakes. I send one free detailed gardening guide to your inbox every week covering exactly these kinds of techniques. Link is in the description. You will not regret it. Watering seems like the simplest part of gardening until you realize how much nuance actually exists. The good news is that once you understand how water moves through soil and what your plants are telling you, the right approach becomes intuitive. You stop following rigid schedules and start responding to what your garden actually needs. That is when everything changes. Good luck in the garden and keep on growing.